Awesome people, welcome to another episode of Awesome People. I am your host, Iman Hushman. It's so great to see you guys. Happy Friday. If it's a morning, good morning to you guys. If it's evening where you're at, good evening. Either way, so happy that you've joined us here on this lovely Friday. Have another great episode. In case you're not familiar with what Awesome People is, it's very simple. We essentially try to put a spotlight on the most awesome Iranians on the planet and have conversation in English with them to find out more about their story, their journey, their challenges, their success, their failures, and all the awesome things that they're working on. And today is definitely one of those awesome guests. Her name is Hiva Alaghebandian. I thought my last name was hard, but Hiva's got me on that one. And I'm glad that I pronounced it properly. For those of you who are not familiar with this amazing Iranian, Hiva is a content creator who helps women look, feel, and be the best versions of themselves. She develops healthy vegan recipes designed to support your gut health and your nervous system. And if you check out her content and you scroll and you see all the videos, you see delicious, beautifully designed food and salads, and it just makes you want to eat healthier. And I feel like nowadays, physical health and mental health are such an important element of our day-to-day life. So we were like, you know what? She's an awesome Iranian. Let's get her onto this conversation. And so here she is. So please help me give her a nice, warm, virtual welcome. Alaghebandian. Yeah. You can put your virtual claps together too, yes. Show some love. Hi, Eva June. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. See, this one was not a butt dial. I just accidentally butt dialed her like 5 minutes ago. And so, but this was the real deal. Great to have you here. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I've been following your content for a long time. We share a mutual friend in Varta, and so I'm glad that that friendship and connection led to us having a conversation about gut health and all the wonderful things and beautiful things you're doing with regards to health and wellness. But for those who may not know you that well, why don't you just kind of take a minute or two and give yourself a little background so our viewers can get to know you a little better?
Sure. So I like to joke that I'm a recovered lawyer, which I'm sure we'll get into, and I'm sure the Iranian community can relate to.
Yeah.
But I practiced law for a hot minute. I stopped doing that, and I really was kind of lost and didn't know where I wanted to be. And so I started to follow what I was doing naturally, what I was doing without anyone prompting me, without anyone paying me, without anyone telling me to. And that was really to share wellness information, to share the things that had worked for me, and to really help other people just feel their best and live the life that they want to live.
Yeah, so you didn't have a traditional start to this kind of work. You briefly mentioned that you were into law. So what was it that made you make this switch from law and economics to like health and wellness? What was the catalyst behind it? I saw it on your website, but I don't think too many people know about it. So I think it'd be great if you can give that background.
Hmm. So I I guess I never even really wanted to practice law, right? Like everyone watching this can probably relate. My dad bullied me into it. And I love my dad. So I was like, you know what? If this will make him happy, it's the least I can do. This man has like moved continents twice for me. He has lived his entire life really focused on making me happy, on trying to provide the best life for me. I can go to school for 3 years. Like I'm smart. I can study. I can do this. So I go to law school. It's a great time. Law school is actually like low key really fun. Like I didn't let anyone tell you otherwise. You have fun in law school, but practicing law is the worst. And so I finished law school, I'm working, and I hate it. And I wanted to get a big law job because in law school, they really brainwash you into thinking that that's the end all be all. And I had really good grades in law school, as I'm sure you can imagine. I had great work experience. Oh, and I did a JD MBA. So I had an MBA also. And I am reaching out to all of these partners at big law firms and just being like, hey, can we get coffee? And a lot of those were turning into interviews. And I'm like going to these big law firms, going for like full day interviews and not getting jobs. And it seemed odd because, again, my resume was there. I mean, like, I think I do okay socially. It didn't make any sense that I wasn't getting offers. And so finally, there was one particular interview that I had where I was like, okay, if I don't get an offer from this firm, I think I'm not meant to practice law. Like, I really think I'm just in the wrong place. I don't think this is for my skill set. I always knew I was better at like math and science than I was at reading and writing and things like that. So it just, I think there was always a part of me that knew that this wasn't for me. And sure enough, I didn't get an offer from that law firm. And that's when I kind of started to open myself to the idea that maybe law isn't for me. I still stuck with it for a while. I started a solo practice as a way to transition. And I noticed that while I had the solo practice, I would sit in my office and spend easily like 4 or 5 hours a day in this Facebook group that I was a member of that was like a self-improvement kind of Facebook group, just helping women in that group. Like they'd ask a question and I'd like sit there for hours every day. No one was paying me to do this. Like I was just sitting there doing this. I mean, I remember I'd get like calls from prospective law clients and I feel like, ooh, actually I'm really busy right now. But it was like, I'm busy doing this for free. And that's when I was like, you know what? Like this is what I'm interested in. Like this is what I feel like I went through so much in my life, both with my physical health and also my mental health and things like that. And I was like, wow, there's now purpose to this pain. I went through so much stuff and no one could help me. I really had to figure out how to heal all of my own issues. Why would I not share that with people?
So how hard was it though? Because I mean, you were pretty pot committed. You went not just to law school, you did the JD MBA portion. I'm sure it was hard to tell your parents and family that, hey, after all this, I'm quitting. Were they receptive towards it? Were they open? Did they realize that, okay, you know what, she's just much better fit over here? And like, how much was it affecting your mental health and physical health being in an environment that wasn't bringing you that joy and purpose that everybody deserves to have?
Yeah, great question. So, God bless my amazing parents who were so much more receptive than I would have ever thought. Like, truly, I was terrified. I remember I was actually on an ayahuasca retreat. And on the second day, like in the middle of the day, I was like, I need to talk to my dad. And I just like wandered out into the woods and called my dad and I was crying. And I was like, I don't want to practice law anymore. And he's like, that's fine. Like, where are you? What are you doing? Why are you barefoot in the woods by yourself? But you know, I was crying to him, and I think they could see how much I really was sick, forcing myself to be in rooms that I was never meant to be in. Like, I was never meant to be in a stuck-up office, like stifling myself. Like, that was never supposed to be for me. And yeah, I think a lot of the issues that I had in my life were the
I see. I can't hear you though. I can
popped
hear
up.
you. Oh, there we go. I can hear you now. Okay, you're back.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
I'm so sorry about that. My Instagram timer thing went off because, you know, she's all about the mental health.
No problem.
But yeah, I mean, really, when I look back, like my gut health got 6 billion times worse in my first job out of college when I worked in policy. And I really think that that was the direct result of being so unhappy there. So I think that that, in a way, did help my case with my parents because they could see how unhappy I was. And they also, at that point, already knew how much expertise I had in wellness because, like, they would call me when they had questions. So
Mhm.
I think that that also helped them that they were like, no, she has something there. Like, let's see where this goes.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people have been connecting to your content because it's been part of your personal journey of, health. And it led to you starting the Blush podcast. So I know that it's, you describe it as like Sex in the City meets Tony Robbins, which I find to be very creative. But can you share a little bit more about the podcast and perhaps like what inspired you to, take on that response? It's a lot of work to do a podcast and stuff. So tell us about the Blush podcast. What kind of topics do you have on there? And, how has it been received so far?
Totally, yeah. So I listen to a lot of podcasts personally, and I always found myself having to choose between great wellnessy podcasts that are all about self-improvement and you get good information and it's good for your subconscious mind. But they were always they were always kind of dry, to be frank. And they were always led by people that I just couldn't relate to. Like, I can't relate to that like perfect girl who's like never had behavioral issues and, does everything right all the time. Like, that's not me. Like, I need someone who understands how chaotic I am. And there were a lot of relatable podcasts I'd listen to that were fun and entertaining and funny, and I'd laugh and I'd actually enjoy listening to them. But anytime there was any sort of advice element, it would be really bad advice. And I was like, God, I just need a show that can bridge the gap of the two. And so I was like, fuck it. I'm so sorry. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. I won't do it
It's
again.
okay. Don't worry. You can curse away. I'm all good with it.
So potty
So
mouth.
considering, I actually appreciate how much you curse on your podcast, so I like it. So considering your traditional like Persian upbringing, like how would you say that type of upbringing has like affected the topics you talk about or like the guests that you have on? I want to try to tie in the Persian element here.
Yeah, totally. It does affect it in two ways. Number one, am I constantly worried that my parents are going to be mad at me? Yes. Um, but on the other hand, I do kind of take it as a responsibility to talk about things that are a little bit taboo in Persian culture because I see that it helps open up dialogue. I started going to therapy in my early to mid 20s, and no one I knew went to therapy and certainly didn't talk about it if they did. And when I started going, I immediately started talking about it to anyone who would listen, literally everyone who would listen. And I can't tell you how many Persian people have reached out to me, like really privately, being like, can you give me the number of your therapist? Another thing, like I've dealt with a lot of gut health issues, specifically like lifelong constipation. I talk about it constantly. I've had my parents' friends come up to me at Mehmooni's and be like, Hiva, I deal with this too. Like, what should I do? But, like really secretly. But the fact that I do talk about it so openly, I see has moved the needle for people, at least in my immediate or greater circles, to have more comfort in talking about it. We weren't always like this as a culture. Like it's really changed tremendously. And I think that we can change it back. And I think it would be better for us as a society, as a community, to be able to have these conversations. So, does it make me a little bit uncomfortable to be the one who does it openly? And like, am I sure there are people sitting around being like, oh my God, pushide, gofte bawaret mishe, of course that's happening. But then tomorrow they might be like, actually, you know what, I'm struggling with my mental health and I think I should talk about this with someone. And that's worth it for me.
Yeah, the whole Mardum Chimigan thing has been a cloud over the Persian community for a long time, especially the younger generation. So when I went on your website and I saw how it all started for you and you mentioned the constipation element, I appreciate and respected the vulnerability for you to kind of share your stuff that's normally not talked about. And I know that it's coming from a genuine place where you just want to share that with others who might be going through the same experience. So you got the Blush podcast, and then you also have a Blush Academy, which is a digital course that you have where you help people feel and look and just be the best version of themselves. What else can you tell us about the Blush Academy and how's that been going so far for you?
Oh, it's amazing. The Blush Academy is my baby. Like, it's my life's work. It's my legacy. I love it so much. And that really was because I would do a lot of inner work. Like I said, I started doing therapy in my early 20s. I have done so many different types of therapy, like you would not even imagine: somatic therapy, this kind of therapy. I mean, the only thing that's left is like horses. Apparently there's a type of therapy with horses. I haven't done the horses yet. Okay. But like, that's it. That's the only thing that's left pretty much. I've been to every kind of doctor you could imagine. Like I've read oh my God, so many self-help books. When I first graduated college and I was working, I used to go to Barnes and Nobles on my way home from work every single day and just go to the self-help section, buy every book, read them all. And nothing really moved the needle. And I realized it's because to really affect change, you have to do it on a deep subconscious level. And so I started combining all of the knowledge I had with like nutrition and various areas of psychology and combining that with a lot of neuroscience research I was doing, specifically this concept in neuroscience called neuroplasticity, which refers to the fact that your brain is very malleable. You know, we think that we just have the brain that we have, but that's really not true. At any age, you can continue to change your brain. It just takes certain conditions. And so I started creating these, I call them neural rewiring practices. They're kind of like hypnosis, you can think of it, but it helps get you in this deep meditative state where your brain is a lot more malleable. And then you can really affect it. You can really get rid of the weight of, you know, past painful, shameful memories. You know, that one time in the third grade when you said something embarrassing and everyone laughed at you, and it's still rattling around in your brain every time you're go back to do a speech or something. You're like, oh my God, everyone's going to laugh at me. It's because of that third grade experience. Well, here's a neural rewiring practice that helps you work through it so you no longer have that. So you can actually show up really confident. So you can actually really show up as the best version of yourself. That's what I would say is the biggest difference in the Blush Academy. So we have courses from everything from like breakups to, you know, relationship conflict to gut health to nervous system. It kind of runs the gamut because I do believe in a very like mind, body, spirit approach. But really, what I would say is the real difference in the Blush Academy is that it's actually going to rewire your brain. So you no longer have to try to like control your behavior. There's no longer like, oh my God, no, I fell off my diet because I couldn't like control my cravings, or like, oh my God, I got in a fight with my boyfriend because I just like couldn't control myself and I had this outburst. You don't need to control yourself anymore. We're just going to rewire your brain into someone who just doesn't even do these things to begin with.
I love that. I mean, I'm sure you put in a lot of work to create those kind of courses, so I'm happy for you that it's giving you the results that you were hoping that it would have. So that's amazing. I wanna talk to you a little bit about food now. I feel like you know a little bit about that. Most first generation Iranian Americans, like we still grow up eating a lot of Persian food. So what benefits come from our diet, and how important would you say diet is for one's mental health?
It's so important. I mean, I won't say it's the only thing. Again, I do believe in a very holistic approach to everything, but it really does start with diet. It should be the first stop for any kind of change you're trying to make, even something as simple as just wanting to do better on a test or something like that. You have a big presentation, like make sure you're eating right. And I'm so grateful. Actually, I don't know about your upbringing, but I know that nutrition was a big thing in my household. Like, I do think one huge benefit that we have in our culture is that we grew up eating far less processed food than, you know, our American or, you know, other Khariji counterparts. Like, just grew up with a lot more processed foods than we did. Like, we didn't have like snacks in the house. It was like eat an apple, like have some must, you know, sabzi khordani.
Yeah, like how often have Persian parents brought us a plate of a wide range of fruits? You know, it's usually in the Persian household that happens.
Yeah, no, I mean so much of really like the things that you see on my platform, all the fruit that I eat, like go to my parents' house, you know, like we would walk around eating cucumbers, like that was the thing that we did. So of course, like I do it now. So yeah, that side of it, I think has been so helpful. And then the other thing is my mom always, again, I don't know how prevalent this is in Persian culture, but my mom always would talk about like the connection between nutrients. And like I remember I was always really scared of things growing up, and my mom's like, maybe you're deficient in B vitamins. You know, like that's kind of the household I grew up in. And then the other thing that I weave into my work a lot, but I might not talk about by name, is tip sonati, because I grew up in a household where my mom, so that's for anyone who doesn't speak Farsi, it's the Persian ancient medicine system, kind of analogous to traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurveda for the Vedic traditions. We had our own ancient medicine system that I don't think is even talked about that much within Iran anymore in modern day. But I grew up in a household where we talk about it a lot. You know, saffron shod garmi me sardi me in sarde ino nakhor in garmi ino nakhor.
Well,
Like things like that really affected me.
I think the father of all this, or one of the people that started, was Ibn Sina, right?
Hmm.
Avicenna, I think. You know, like
Hmm.
I think he was one of the first people that kind of wrote a lot about it. Not sure if you want to add anything to that. I'm not too educated on that, but you know, it's great to know that a Persian was behind all that in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you know, when we're looking at your page and when you look at the stuff that you create, there's a lot of beauty and art. And I was just wondering, like, when you kind of eat these stuff and just the look of it itself. Is that something that maybe like your mom or something was making always beautiful salads? Like for example, my sister always makes like whenever I go to her house, her salad is just like beautiful salads instead of just something normal.
Mhm.
How much has like your Persian culture or just family upbringing impacted your artistic ability to present all these healthy foods that you've been presenting?
Definitely. I mean, growing up, whenever my mom would make, it was specifically with salad olovie, kashke badem jun, and ash. Oh, and halva. Those are the ones that she would always decorate and have me help her decorate. So I do think that that is part of my upbringing. But I actually think it's a lot deeper and broader than that. I think it's in our DNA.
Mm.
And, Varta and I were just having a conversation about this, and I hadn't really thought about it until she said it, but our ancestors were artists. I mean, some of the best poetry in the world comes from Iran, like all of these like white bitches out here like posting Rumi quotes, like that's our culture, like Hafiz, Shahnameh, like we come from a culture of such beautiful, rich art, not just in poetry and music and in paintings of rugs. I mean, look at our rugs. That's all art. And at some point, we sacrifice that connection with art in favor of security. Like all of our upbringings, probably all of our parents wanted us to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, because not because they wanted to abandon the art, but because our parents obviously want us to be comfortable and want us to be taken care of. And they moved to this country and they were like, okay, these are the careers where they'll be financially prosperous and be okay, and we won't have to worry about them. And we can't judge them for that. I very much understand that decision on our parents' parts, but we are a people of art, and I would like to see future generations return to that. So, to answer your question, sorry I talked for like 20 million years, but on the one hand, yes, I was exposed to it as a child via my mom, but I do think it's deeper. I think, just like there's trauma for generations, people talk about generational trauma. I do think that artistic ability is actually in our DNA.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. So staying on the topic of food, and you promote a lot of vegan dishes and recipes. Obviously, a lot of Persian food is centered around meat. And so how easy or hard would you say it is to make vegan versions of Persian dishes?
I actually don't think it's that hard. With a lot of the dishes, just leave out the meat and you could always substitute it with beans or something like that. If you want to be a little more fancy, I think you can do great things with walnuts. Like especially with any sort of like a kofta visa situation, you could do that with like walnuts and beans and actually make something that's really, really tasty. Or you could make a nice like mince substitute, like a ground meat substitute with walnuts and lentils or things like that. So for those types of dishes, I think that's great. Or you could just substitute like a mushroom, a bean in the stews. Now, my favorite thing to make is I make a really good kashke bandem John. And that's a little more tricky to veganize because you have to replace the kashk, but I found a way to do it with um, badam hindi with cashews and miso, and it's really stunning. It tastes really, really good. It's really similar. I make it for all of my friends, and they all love it. Um, the only one I haven't done, and I don't know how one would do it, I'd have to give it some thought, is tachine.
Mm, yeah, to
That's
replace
one
the
that
chicken.
one day Varta and I need to team up and do it because I don't do a lot of Persian food. I do use a lot of Persian influences in my food, like a lot of the spices and the flavors and stuff. But Varta's much better at Persian food. We need to team up and make a vegan tagine.
I think after this episode, I feel like a little bit of a collaboration would be in order
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, we love hearing about Persians following career paths that are outside the box, which in your case that definitely falls under. You were in the box and then you decide to get out of it. Now that you've gone through this journey of leaving that type of law and economy field to this, what advice would you have for the younger audience that are trying to also break away and not go through the doctor, engineering, lawyer route? What's the best advice that you can give them?
Honestly, I would say to do the deep inner work first. really get to know yourself, get to know what your actual interests are, what your actual passions are outside of what your parents told you they should be, outside of what your teachers said they should be, outside of what your friends say they should be. Really get to know who you are on a soul level, because as long as you're continuing to act under the influence of everyone else's opinions for you, you're probably not going to get very far. But once you really connect with yourself on a soul level and you show up from that place, you're going to go a lot further. So that's not very concrete advice, but I do think it's the most important thing.
I love that. So I have a set of rapid fire questions, but I realize and I had a few people that helped out, so shout out to our producers. Because I feel like because you're in health and wellness, some of these rapid fire questions have to do with like just your tips and tricks about, health and wellness, and also at the same time some stuff that's about you personally. So it's a remix version of rapid fire, okay? Are
Hmm.
you ready?
Hmm.
All right. So what's the most important thing to start off your day?
Mindfulness.
So like you do like meditation and like what how do you meditate? Is it just you and yourself, or do you listen to apps, or what do you do?
Oh
How do
God, do
you
you have 45 minutes to hear? Like I meditate like a very devout person namazes, okay? Like I start
okay.
my day with a walking meditation while I walk my dog. And then I come in and I do breath work, I do mindfulness meditation, I do some visualization, and I do some intention setting. And
Mm.
then around the middle of the day, I do a neural rewiring practice from the Blush Academy. So that's kind of like the deeper, the hypnosis-y thing. And then at night in bed, I do more mindfulness meditation and I do some journaling, intention setting, gratitude practice. So
Beautiful.
I think it's really important to bookend my day by just connecting with myself. So I always have that at the beginning and the end. And then in the middle, I like to throw in a little neural rewiring for an extra boost. So yeah,
Fun.
not quite the five namazes, but you know what? My mom always cheats and does her namazes so that they straddle the line. Like she'll do like one at like a certain time, so it counts for like morning and midday. So like pretty much same thing.
That's great. A few months ago, my girlfriend got me into meditation, and I use the Insight Timer. It's a pretty good app that I like.
Friend me
And
on it.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
friend
cool. Yeah, for
me
sure.
on it. I
All right.
still use it to have my stats because,
Yeah.
like, not to brag, but I've done over 2,000 consecutive days. So,
I
no, it's great. It's like,
did
I
like
think
20, I did 28, and I was so proud of myself.
you should
2000?
be. You
Goodness
know what? The
gracious.
first 100 are the hardest. You should be proud of yourself. At some point, then it
2000.
becomes like brushing your teeth. Like, you're going to do it no matter
I
what.
feel like they should have your picture on that app if you've done 2000. I mean, that's
Honestly,
insane.
they should. They
I'm, pr-
should rename it Hiva
I,
Timer.
I'm proud of you. You should have your own meditation program on there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Just a
I
thought.
could.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
that's
I was
actually
like, wait
not
a
a bad
second. At
idea.
that point, you're more of an expert than the people that are doing the things. Anyways, let me continue to wrap up. Okay. When yeah you should have your when should you have your last meal of the day?
I say about 11 hours before you want to wake up the next day.
11 hours before. Okay, 7. Okay, that's
Or
good.
so
So
you should
basically,
stop eating around 11 hours before you want to wake up the next day.
okay,
So that gives you a nice buffer to digest before bed.
okay. And any nighttime snacks that could promote good sleep?
There's all these like sleepy mocktail things out there. There's some science between like tart cherries have melatonin, but really the best thing that you can do is just not eat a heavy meal before bed. That's truthfully the best thing that you can do.
Favorite Persian dish to make vegan? I guess you said it earlier. Kashke badam John? Is that okay?
Yeah,
All right.
that's so good.
All right. What's the most Persian thing about you?
I'm so late all the time.
All right, fair enough. What is the Persian word or phrase that describes you the best?
Oh, Ajik Kareem.
I love the honesty. Uh, Coffee or tea? I don't even think you drink coffee, but I thought I'd ask it anyways.
No, I do like herbal teas. I don't do caffeine really.
Okay. What's your favorite app on your phone?
WhatsApp, I think, because I send voice memos to and from my friends, so it's good for that.
Communication is important. What's
Yeah,
one thing you can't live without?
fruit.
Oh wow. Uh, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Mm. You only need to know, what is it, two things or three things? I heard BJ Novak say this, and it was specifically about being a director, but I think it applies to life. He said, and someone else had given him this advice: you need to know what you want, and you need to know how to get it,
Hmm.
which kind of seems like it covers everything, right?
Yeah, no, but it's great. I love it. And plus, I love The Office, so I already like that.
Yeah.
What's your go-to comfort food?
Ooh, I have this dish that I make. I use riced cauliflower and I heat it up with tomatoes. And it reminds me of growing up when we would get chilo kebab. My dad taught me to do this. I would always cut up the grilled tomato and mix it with my rice. So I just do the riced cauliflower instead because I'm actually crazily not a big rice girl. I know it's like very blasphemous. I also don't like tahdig, which I should not have admitted because I have to like give up my Persian card now. I like bread tahdig. I like it when there's potato. I just don't like it when it's plain rice. So I do the rice cauliflower with the tomato, and then I add chickpeas and I add a tahini sauce that I make and some cilantro and like microgreens and onions and stuff like that.
I haven't had lunch yet, so that's what I'm looking forward to experience here. You're the most underrated ingredient.
Onion.
Okay. First Persian concert.
Oh, Afshin.
Wow, in DC
Yeah.
at Fur or Love.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like the first and only time that he came there. All right, what I ask every time at the end of every Awesome People conversation, what are you most proud of as an Iranian?
I'm proud of our people. We really are the most hospitable, kind people. And I think that when you are only around Iranians, you kind of forget until you're around other people. Like you go to someone else's house and you're like, oh, this is a different experience than going to an Iranian's house. But we really are, like, we genuinely are just such loving, caring, hospitable people. And we have big hearts. We really do.
That's a great answer. Wonderful. Well, Hiva, I really appreciate you taking time to share a little bit of your journey. And I think it's great things that you're projecting out to the universe by using your experience, things that have helped you on your health journey to now help others. I can't think of a better thing to be doing for the world than making them a healthier people, mind, body, and soul. So I wish you continued success and can't wait to see the Blush podcast blow up and the academy continue to grow and create more and more different courses so that you can continue to make a positive impact on the world.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Of course, my pleasure. Take care. Be well.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Hiva Alaghebandian, and we really appreciate her joining. And thank you guys for watching this episode. Wishing you guys a wonderful weekend, and stay tuned for details of the next episode coming. Take care, guys. Bye bye.